Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got another deep dive ready for you all today. We're going to unpack some really cool ideas from a collection of wisdom, all kind of geared towards this idea of living a more fulfilling, more effective life.
Yeah, and it really is like a bit of a cheat sheet almost, like cutting through all the noise and giving you those key principles.
What to the good stuff.
Exactly. So we're talking mindset, we're talking habits, we're talking just this overall sense of well-being, right? And the goal here isn't to like overload you with a million things to change overnight.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's more about giving you these practical tools and insights, these little aha moments, things you can actually put into practice and really see a difference in your life.
I love that. And speaking of practical, one of the things that really stood out to me as we were going through all of this material was this emphasis on tangible actions.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to kind of get an idea, but it's a whole other thing to actually weave it into your everyday life.
Yeah, anyone can read a quote, but it's how you live it. That's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to try to help you do just that, really pinpoint those takeaways and break them down so you can walk away and go, okay, I get it. I see why this matters.
And hopefully have a little fun along the way.
Always. All right, so why don't we jump right in?
Let's do it.
And you know what? Let's start with something that feels almost like incredibly basic, but the source material really digs into it, and that's the impact of sunlight, especially as it relates to our morning routines.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this striking image of us being like plants deprived of sunlight, and it really got me thinking.
You know what's so fascinating about that analogy? It's not just poetic. It actually hits on something really deep biologically.
Right. Like we literally need it.
We do, and especially that early morning sunlight, it's like the master regulator of our internal clock or circadian rhythm.
Which controls like everything, right?
So much, yeah. Your sleep-wake cycles, hormone production, even your energy levels throughout the day.
So like when that light hits your eyes first thing in the morning?
It triggers this cascade of hormonal responses. And not only does it improve your sleep quality later on, but it also gives you this natural energy boost throughout the day.
And you know what else I found really interesting? There are studies linking this early light exposure to increased serotonin production.
Oh, absolutely. And serotonin, that's your feel-good neurotransmitter. So it's not just about feeling awake, it's about feeling good.
Right, that mood boost. So simple, right? Just get a little bit of sunlight in the morning.
I know. Have your coffee outside, take a quick walk around the block. It doesn't have to be this huge, elaborate ritual. Just let that natural light in.
And, thinking about it, from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes perfect sense.
Of course, right. For most of human history, our bodies have been attuned to the rising and setting of the sun.
We've gotten so far from that.
We have, and disrupting this natural rhythm, it can really throw things off, both physically and mentally.
Big time.
So yeah, getting that morning sunlight, it's like this small, seemingly insignificant tweak, but it can actually have this huge ripple effect on your overall well-being.
Totally. And speaking of things we can't really get back, the deep dive then goes into this whole idea of time being this incredibly precious, non-renewable resource.
Oh, I love that.
This one really hit home for me because it's so easy to let our time just sort of, vanish.
I think it's something we're all guilty of.
Absolutely. But the source material compares it to a currency that we can't earn back. And I think that's just so powerful.
It's such a good way to put it because you might be able to make more money, but once a minute is gone, it's gone forever.
Exactly. And that perspective, I think it forces you to become a lot more mindful about how you're spending your days.
Well, yeah. Have you ever heard of the concept of time affluence?
No, tell me about it.
So there's research suggesting that feeling like you have enough time is actually more closely linked to happiness than, say, material wealth.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's not just about how much time you have, it's about how you perceive and utilize that time.
That makes total sense. So what's the advice here?
It's pretty straightforward, really. Be a fierce protector of your time.
Like set those boundaries.
Exactly. Be willing to say no to things that aren't truly important to you, and don't feel this constant pressure to be available 24/7.
Which I think is a real struggle in our always-on world.
Oh, absolutely. But here's a question for you and for everyone listening. How often do you find yourself saying yes out of obligation or FOMO, rather than because you genuinely want to or need to do something?
Oh, more often than I'd like to admit, probably.
I think we all do it. But the source really prompts us to ask this powerful question. Is this how I truly want to spend my limited time on this earth?
Wow, that's a good one.
It is, right? And it can be this really powerful filter for how you evaluate your commitments.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're being more intentional with our time, but even with the best intentions, actually following through on things, making those changes, it can be tough. And that brings us to this really fascinating concept of building systems, rather than just relying on motivation.
Oh, yes. This was a big aha moment for me.
Me too. Because, we often hear, just be more motivated.
Right, like it's this magical switch you can flip on.
But what I love about this idea is it recognizes that motivation isn't always there.
It's so true. It's kind of like the wind, it comes and goes. You can't always count on it.
Exactly. But systems, on the other hand,
Systems are like those solid, reliable routines, things that become almost automatic.
like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. You don't wake up every morning and debate whether or not you're going to brush your teeth. It's just what you do.
Right. And the examples the source material gives are really helpful. Things like setting aside a specific time each day for focused work or planning your workouts in advance.
I love that because it's not about waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about creating this structure that supports your goals so you're not constantly fighting an uphill battle against your own inertia.
And there's this quote from James Clear that really stuck with me. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
It's so true, isn't it? And it reframes how we think about achievement, right? Because it's not just about setting these big, lofty goals. It's about those small, consistent actions, the systems we put in place that ultimately determine our success.
So, in a sense, building those systems is like setting yourself up for success almost automatically.
Exactly. It's about making the desired behavior the easiest, most natural choice.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, another idea from the source material that really resonated with me was the power of actually writing things down.
Oh, this is such a good one. And again, so simple, but so powerful.
I know the source talks about how our minds are actually designed for coming up with ideas, not necessarily for storing every single detail.
It's so true. Trying to remember everything, it's like having a million tabs open in your brain all the time.
And who can function like that?
Right. And there's a term for that. It's called cognitive load. Essentially, our working memory has a limited capacity. And when we try to hold on to too many things at once, to-do lists, worries, random ideas, it can really overwhelm our mental resources.
So writing things down is almost like freeing up space in your brain.
Exactly. It's like external storage for your mind. It allows you to offload all those tasks and worries so you have more mental bandwidth for things like processing information, problem solving, being creative.
Like taking things off your computer's RAM and putting them on the hard drive.
Perfect analogy, and the suggestions are really simple. Keep a journal, make to-do lists, even just scribble down random thoughts on a scrap of paper.
It doesn't need to be this big formal thing.
No, just something to get it out of your head.
Man, what's the benefit?
Well, for me, it's this incredible sense of mental clarity. It's like clearing out all the clutter and finally being able to breathe.
I can relate to that. If we connect this back to time management and productivity, writing things down also gives you this tangible way to prioritize tasks, plan your day, and actually see your progress.
Absolutely. It takes those vague anxieties and to-dos and turns them into concrete steps.
Which then makes them less overwhelming and a lot more actionable.
Exactly. Okay, ready to move on.
Yeah, let's do it.
The next thing the deep dive talks about is the importance of flow activities.
Oh, this is a good one. And I think it's something a
Right.
lot of people intuitively understand.
Oh, for sure. I mean, who hasn't experienced that feeling of being completely absorbed in something where time just seems to disappear?
Right, like you're totally in the zone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's flow. And the psychologist who really popularized this concept, Csikszentmihalyi, described it as this state of complete immersion in an activity where you lose all sense of self-consciousness.
It's not just enjoyable, it's like you're performing at your best.
Absolutely. And it's this prime state for learning, for creativity, for deep personal growth. And what's really interesting is that it happens when your skills are perfectly matched to the challenge at hand. Not too easy, not too hard.
That's sweet spot.
Exactly. And the examples given are really diverse. Everything from painting to coding to playing music to running.
Right, it's not just limited to artistic or creative pursuits.
No, not at all. It's about finding those activities that completely captivate your attention, those things that make you lose track of time. And the key takeaway here is that these aren't just hobbies or leisure activities. They're actually crucial for unlocking your full potential.
That's such a good point.
When you're in that flow state, you're operating at your peak, you're challenged but not overwhelmed, and that leads to this deep sense of competence and fulfillment.
So it's not selfish to prioritize these activities.
Not at all. It's an investment in your well-being, your skills, your overall happiness. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, let's keep going. What's next?
All right, so the next idea is about the surprising power of small habits.
I love this one.
Me too, because we often get so caught up in trying to make these huge, sweeping changes in our lives.
Right, like overnight transformation.
Exactly. But the source gently reminds us that it's those tiny, consistent actions, those seemingly insignificant things we do day after day, that can actually have a huge impact over time.
Like what?
Well, think about it. Making your bed in the morning, drinking a glass of water first thing, making a conscious effort to respond to others with kindness.
Okay, yeah.
Individually, these things might seem small, but when you do them consistently day after day, week after week,
This adds up.
it really does. And the source material uses this analogy of tiny brush strokes eventually creating a masterpiece.
I love that.
It's such a good visual, right? Because it reminds us that progress doesn't always have to be this huge, dramatic thing. Sometimes it's the slow, steady accumulation of these small, positive actions that leads to the most profound transformations.
It's like that whole compound interest thing, but for your life.
Exactly. And there's a psychological aspect to this too. Mastering these small habits, it actually builds your self-efficacy. Meaning each little success reinforces your belief that you can make positive changes.
I see. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes to tackle bigger goals.
Exactly. It's all about building momentum.
That makes sense. Okay, so what else did we learn?
All right, well, this next one feels particularly relevant in our super connected, image-obsessed world.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. Social comparison.
You got it. And the source uses the story of John, who's out in his garden tending to his plants, and Leo, who's glued to his phone, scrolling through social media.
Oh, I know so many Leos.
Right. And Leo, he's bombarded with these curated highlight reels of other people's lives, which, let's be honest, are rarely an accurate reflection of reality.
Never the full picture.
Never. And so he ends up feeling inadequate, envious, comparing himself to these often unrealistic portrayals.
And meanwhile, John.
John's focused on his own garden, nurturing his own plants, watching them grow. He's not distracted by what everyone else is doing.
That's such a good analogy. And it makes the advice so clear. Stop comparing yourself to others and focus on your own journey, your own growth, your own garden.
It's about shifting your gaze inward, celebrating your own progress, no matter how small, and recognizing that everyone's on their own timeline.
So what's the harm in a little comparison?
Well, the thing is, it can be a real drain on your mental energy and your self-esteem. It distracts you from your own goals, your own accomplishments, and just fuels this constant sense of dissatisfaction.
It's like you're always looking over the fence instead of tending to your own yard.
Exactly. And the source material emphasizes that focusing on your own growth, your own journey, that's ultimately so much more fulfilling.
It makes total sense. Okay, ready for the next one?
Hit me with it.
All right, so this one's all about being careful about where you get your advice from. The source stresses the importance of seeking wisdom from the right sources.
Oh, this is so crucial.
And the analogy they use is so good. You wouldn't ask someone who's never set foot in a gym for advice on how to build muscle.
Exactly. You'd go to someone who has the results you want, who lives the way you aspire to live.
So it's not about taking every piece of advice you hear to heart.
No. You have to be discerning. Look at the source. Do they have the experience, the knowledge, the values you align with?
And the source even quotes Denzel Washington on this. Some people will never like you because your spirit irritates their demons.
Oh, that's such a good one. Because it reminds us that not everyone's opinion carries the same weight. Sometimes criticism says more about the person giving it than about you.
So true.
So be selective about whose opinions you allow to influence you. Find those mentors and role models whose lives truly resonate with you, and respectfully disregard the rest.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, next up.
Okay, this next one's all about something that I think we all struggle with, especially in today's go-go-go culture. It's the need for mental white space.
Oh, I feel that. Just the idea of doing nothing sometimes feels revolutionary.
I know, but the source material is really adamant about the importance of intentionally creating moments of stillness and quiet in our lives.
And why is that so important?
Well, neuroscience is actually showing us that these periods of downtime are absolutely crucial for our brains to function optimally.
Really?
Yeah, it's when our brains process information, consolidate memories, and essentially recharge. It's like defragmenting your mental hard drive.
Okay, that makes sense.
And you know what's fascinating? When our minds are in this doing nothing state, It activates a specific network in our brain called the default mode network.
The DMN.
Yeah. And this network is linked to things like mind wandering, self-reflection, and creative insights.
So daydreaming is actually good for us.
It can be, especially when it's intentional. And the advice here is to actually schedule these periods of empty time into your calendar.
Like you would a meeting.
Exactly. Reframe it from being lazy to being an essential part of your well-being.
I love that. And thinking back to that point about writing things down, it makes sense that creating mental white space allows your brain to actually process all that stuff you've offloaded.
It's like letting those thoughts settle and giving yourself the space to see things more clearly.
So it's not just about relaxing. It's about creating space for new ideas and insights to emerge.
Precisely. Okay, next up.
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right, so this one is for those times when we feel totally stuck, overwhelmed by a problem or a decision.
I think we've all been there.
Oh, for sure. And the source material offers a really powerful antidote to that feeling. Action.
Well, that's interesting. We often think we need to have all the answers before we can do anything.
Right. We get caught in this analysis paralysis, researching, planning, waiting for the perfect moment to start.
But the source says that's actually backwards.
In a way, yes, because often clarity doesn't come before action, it comes through action.
So what's the advice?
Just start. Take that first step, even if it's small. Write that one sentence, make that one phone call, sign up for that class.
Just do something.
Exactly. It's about generating momentum. And what's amazing is how taking that initial action can actually change how you see the problem itself.
How so?
Well, when you're stuck in your head, the obstacles often seem huge and insurmountable. But once you start moving, even a little, things often feel less daunting.
So the key is to stop thinking and start doing.
In a way, yes. Action can be a powerful catalyst for clarity and problem solving.
Makes sense. Okay, what's next?
Okay, this next point is a bit more personal, and it's about the importance of cultivating self-compassion.
Oh, I love this one.
Me too. And the source starts by asking us to think about how we'd talk to a friend who is feeling down or struggling.
We'd be kind, encouraging.
Exactly. But then it challenges us to compare that to how we talk to ourselves.
Ouch. Yeah, not always so kind.
Right. We tend to be so much harsher on ourselves. And the message here is that we deserve the same kindness and understanding that we'd offer a loved one.
So how do we actually do that?
Well, it starts with awareness. Start paying attention to that negative self-talk.
Like that inner critic.
Exactly. And then consciously choose to shift that dialogue.
To be more encouraging, more supportive.
Yes. And it's so important because we live with our thoughts 24/7.
Our own worst company sometimes.
Right. So make that inner landscape a kinder, more compassionate place. It makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. Okay, what else?
The deep dive then reminds us about the importance of taking care of our physical well-being.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. And the way the source puts it is really beautiful. It says that we're given only one body in this lifetime, and it's our unique and irreplaceable home.
I love that.
It's a great way to frame it, right? Because when you think about it that way, taking care of your body isn't a chore, it's an act of self-respect.
Absolutely.
And the source reminds us that our physical health underpins everything else. Our energy levels, our mental clarity, even our ability to experience joy.
So what are the practical steps here?
Well, it's about those basic things. Nourishing your body with good food, moving your body in ways you enjoy, and getting enough rest.
And it doesn't have to be about punishing workouts or restrictive diets.
No. Find forms of exercise that you actually look forward to, whether it's dancing, hiking, swimming, whatever brings you joy.
And focus on feeling good, feeling energized, feeling strong.
Exactly. And, this ties back to that point about small habits.
Right, making those small, consistent choices over time.
Exactly. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just focus on those small steps that move you in the right direction.
Okay, I like that. So what's next on our list?
All right, well, the next point is about motivation, but not just any kind of motivation. It's about the difference between intrinsic motivation and seeking external validation.
Oh, that's a big one. Especially these days.
I know. And the source uses this story about Emma, who is a photographer.
Okay, what about Emma?
So Emma loves photography, but she gets caught up in the whole social media thing.
Likes, comments, followers.
Exactly. And she starts to notice that her passion for photography fluctuates based on the amount of external validation she gets.
So, like, if her photos don't get a lot of likes, she feels discouraged.
Exactly. And it starts to affect her enjoyment of the process.
And what's the takeaway from that?
The message is that When our motivation comes primarily from external sources, like social media, we risk losing touch with the intrinsic joy that drew us to the activity in the first place.
It's like we're doing things for the applause instead of for the love of the thing itself.
Precisely. And the advice is simple but profound. Do things because they matter to you, because they bring you joy, not because you're trying to impress other people.
So how do we shift that focus?
Well, it's about reconnecting with your own internal compass. Meaning, ask yourself, what brings me joy? What am I truly passionate about? And then do those things regardless of whether anyone else notices or approves.
Because ultimately, your own fulfillment is what matters most.
Exactly. And you know what? When your motivation comes from within, it's much more sustainable.
So you're less likely to give up when things get tough.
Exactly. Because you're driven by something deeper than just fleeting external validation.
That makes a lot of sense. What else do we have?
All right, the next point is a cautionary one. It's about the dangers of quick fixes and the enduring value of gradual, meaningful progress.
I think we live in a culture obsessed with shortcuts.
We do. Instant gratification is everywhere, but the source uses this analogy of planting a tree.
Okay, like where this is going.
So you plant a seed, you nurture it, you water it, but you can't rush the growth process.
You have to be patient.
Exactly. And just like a tree needs time to develop a strong root system before it can reach its full potential, so do we.
It's about building that solid foundation.
Precisely. And shortcuts, they often bypass that essential foundation building stage. They try to skip ahead, and that often leads to instability and setbacks in the long run.
So what's the takeaway?
Trust the slow path, trust the deep path. It might take longer, but the results will be far more sustainable and rewarding.
It's about playing the long game.
Exactly. And you know, this ties back to what we talked about earlier about systems.
Right. Consistent effort over time.
Precisely. It's those small daily actions that compound and create lasting change. Okay, ready for the next one?
Yeah, fire away.
All right, this one is about the incredible power of deep work, and it's something that's increasingly challenging in our hyper-connected world.
Oh, tell me about it. Notifications everywhere.
Right. Our attention is constantly being pulled in a million different directions. But deep work, as Cal Newport calls it, is about intentionally creating these pockets of uninterrupted time to focus intensely on a single task.
So it's about minimizing distractions.
Exactly. Turn off your phone, close those extra tabs, maybe even find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. And what's amazing is that even dedicating just 1 hour a day to this kind of focused work can lead to significant results.
Really?
Yeah, you get more done, the quality of your work improves, and you feel a much deeper sense of accomplishment.
So it's about depth over breadth.
Exactly. And the source even compares it to the compound effect we talked about earlier.
Right, those small, consistent efforts adding up over time.
Precisely. But in this case, it's about consistent, focused effort, and the results can be truly remarkable.
I'm definitely going to try that. Okay, what else do we have?
The next point is about paying attention to our energy levels.
Our energy levels.
Yeah. The source describes them as our personal compass.
That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way.
It's a great way to think about it because our energy levels can tell us a lot about what's truly important to us, what lights us up, and conversely, what drains us.
So if something consistently leaves you feeling exhausted or depleted, it might be a sign that it's not serving you.
Exactly. And the source encourages us to be really honest with ourselves about this. If a job, a relationship, even a routine consistently leaves you feeling heavy and drained, maybe it's time to consider some changes.
Because life, while challenging at times, should ultimately feel more energizing than depleting.
Exactly. And you know, this ties back to self-compassion, which we talked about earlier.
Right, being kind to yourself.
Exactly. Honoring your energy levels is part of taking care of yourself. It's about recognizing your limits, respecting your needs, and making choices that support your well-being.
Okay, I like that. What's next on our list?
The next point is a really important one, and it's about approaching self-improvement from a place of self-love rather than self-criticism.
Oh, that's a big shift for a lot of people.
It is. We often try to force ourselves to change because we feel ashamed or inadequate.
Like we're not good enough as we are.
Exactly. But the source says that kind of motivation rarely leads to lasting change.
Because it's coming from a place of negativity.
Precisely. Real, meaningful change. It has to come from a place of self-acceptance, from believing that you're worthy and capable of growth.
So it's about changing because you want to, not because you feel like you have to.
Exactly. And the source even reframes that Tony Robbins quote about the pain of staying the same.
I love that quote.
It's powerful, right?
But the source emphasizes that the most positive and enduring change, it comes from believing that you deserve better and are worth the effort it takes to grow.
So it's about believing in yourself, in your potential.
Absolutely. And that kind of self-belief, it's incredibly powerful. It fuels your motivation and helps you persevere through challenges.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what else?
All right, well, the next point is all about rest. And it's something that often gets overlooked in our productivity-obsessed culture.
We feel like we need to be on all the time.
I know, but the source material is adamant that rest is not a luxury. It's essential for effectiveness.
It uses the analogy of a phone battery needing to be recharged. Such a good analogy, right? Because just like our phones can't function properly when their batteries are drained, neither can we.
We need to recharge too.
Absolutely. And that includes getting enough sleep, taking breaks throughout the day, and allowing for time off.
So it's not just about sleep.
No, it's about giving your mind and body the downtime they need to recover and function optimally.
And what are the benefits of doing that?
Well, rest improves your focus, boosts your creativity, increases your patience, helps you regulate your emotions.
So it's not just about feeling less tired, it's about functioning at a higher level.
Exactly. And the advice is to treat your rest time with the same importance as you would any other important task.
Like schedule it into your day.
Exactly. Make it a non-negotiable. And, this connects back to what I talked about earlier about honoring your body's needs.
Right, treating your body with respect.
Exactly. Rest is a fundamental part of self-care.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, this next one is about boundaries, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's tough to say no sometimes.
It is. But healthy boundaries are so important for protecting your time, energy, and emotional well-being.
So what are boundaries exactly?
Well, they're essentially guidelines that you set for yourself and others about how you expect to be treated.
Like what you will and won't tolerate.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes that boundaries aren't about building walls to keep people out. They're about defining clear limits to protect yourself.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it reminds us that we have the right to be unavailable, we don't have to over-explain our decisions, and we don't have to take on the stress and emotional burdens of others.
So setting boundaries is a way of taking care of ourselves.
Absolutely. It's a form of self-respect. And what's interesting is that when you establish clear boundaries, it actually helps other people treat you better too.
Because they know what to expect.
Exactly. And, this connects back to what we talked about earlier about time management.
Right, being more intentional about how you spend your time.
Exactly. Boundaries help you protect that precious time and energy. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, what else?
Okay, so this next tip is a really practical one for improving your sleep quality.
Oh, tell me everything. Sleep is my life.
I hear that. So the advice is to create a dedicated sanctuary for sleep. Meaning your bed should be for sleeping and, well, maybe one other thing.
Okay, I like where this is going.
But seriously, avoid using your bed for work, for scrolling through your phone, for eating, for anything other than sleep and, well, intimacy.
So why is that?